I still remember that morning like it was burned into my brain. The sun had just risen over the hill when I walked down my driveway, coffee in hand, and froze. A brand new 8-foot metal fence stretched across the only road leading to my ranch, with a shiny keypad gate right in the middle and a bold white sign, "Private Access, HOA Residents Only." It felt like someone had wrapped a chain around my freedom. I wasn't just angry, I was trapped, cut off from the land I'd worked for years to build. But a few weeks later, that same gate would end up making me thousands of dollars a month. And the smug HOA president who put it there would be explaining to the county why his fancy community just lost its funding. I'm Jack McCarthy, 38 years old, ex-engineer turned rancher, and this is how one HOA tried to strangle my life and ended up paying for it. One toll at a time. 2 years ago, I bought a 30-acre ranch just outside Cedar Bluff, Texas. It wasn't much when I got it. Weeds, cracked fences, a barn that leaned to one side like it had given up, but I loved it anyway. I'm the kind of guy who likes fixing things, building with my hands, wiring up my own systems. Within months, I'd set up solar panels, automatic chicken doors, even motion sensors for the goats. The land was my peace, a mix of dirt, sweat, and quiet sunsets. The only road to my property wound through a neighborhood called Pine Valley Meadows. A perfect little slice of suburbia with matching mailboxes, manicured lawns, and a homeowners association that treated every blade of grass like it needed military discipline. I wasn't part of that HOA, thank God, but my property deed came with a recorded easement. That meant I had a legal right to use that road forever. For 2 years, everything was fine. I sold eggs to some of the neighbors, fixed fences for an older couple named Frank and Mabel, and kept to myself. Then, one Tuesday, a letter showed up in my mailbox, crisp paper, bold heading, "Notice of community meeting regarding security enhancements." I wasn't even a member, but something about illegal road use caught my eye. I figured it was some clerical error, but I decided to attend anyway. When I arrived, the community center smelled of coffee and expensive perfume. Dozens of residents sat in rows, whispering and smiling fake smiles. Up front stood a tall man in a tailored suit, slicked, back gray hair, speaking like a politician on campaign day. "I'm Charles Benton, your new HOA president," he said, his voice dripping with charm. "We're about to raise property values across the board." He clicked a slide on the projector, mock-ups of a new gate, a fancy fence, stone pillars, and digital security pads. "To protect our neighborhood," he continued, "we'll begin construction tomorrow morning." And then he said it. "There's just one issue, that unsightly ranch down the road creating traffic through our private streets. We'll be restricting access to Pine Valley Meadows for members only." The room murmured in agreement. My blood started boiling. I stood up. "Excuse me," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "That unsightly ranch is mine, and I've got a legal easement to use this road. You can't block it." The smiles disappeared. Charles looked at me like I'd interrupted his Broadway debut. "Mr. McCarthy, the board has full authority over community roads. We're simply improving security. You're welcome to apply for an access card, annual fee of $300. I laughed. "That's not a membership, that's extortion." He smirked, tilting his head. "Then perhaps you'll find another way home." That was the start of a 6-month war. By sunrise the next morning, trucks rolled in. Construction crews in neon vests started digging post holes, pouring concrete, and welding steel. I ran down the driveway, boots half tied, shouting for them to stop. They shrugged. "Just following orders, sir." And then Charles himself showed up, looking like he was stepping out of a real estate magazine. "Morning, Jack," he said smoothly, waving a clipboard. "This area is HOA property now. You'll need to pay for an access card if you want to keep using this road. $3,000 annually, updated security rates." I nearly lost it. "You're building on my easement. Charles, you're breaking the law." He smiled that perfect plastic smile. "You're welcome to take it up with your attorney. Construction's already approved." And with that, he turned, leaving tire tracks on my driveway like a signature of arrogance. That night, I couldn't sleep. My lawyer friend, Emily Tran, confirmed my rights were solid. "You have a perpetual easement," she said over the phone. "They can't block it, but injunctions take weeks, maybe months. Document everything." So I did. Photos, videos, timestamps. But the next morning, the fence was finished. A full gate, keypad entry, cameras, the works. I had to swipe a temporary pass just to leave my own property. I remember standing there, staring at that cold metal barrier, feeling something I hadn't felt in years: humiliation. I'd worked my whole life for independence, and now I was being treated like a trespasser. I felt helpless, cornered, like they'd stolen a part of me. For days, I spiraled. I barely touched my tools, barely ate. I started thinking maybe Charles was right. Maybe I should just sell, move somewhere without people breathing down my neck. But one evening, as the sun set over my field, I saw my reflection in the window, tired, angry, defeated, and I thought, this isn't who I am. That's when I noticed something strange. The gate's left post sat a few feet off from the old survey marker I remembered. I pulled out my deed, the original survey maps, and spent hours comparing landmarks, pacing with a flashlight. When I lined everything up, my jaw dropped. Part of their gate was built on my land, about 3 feet of it. I called Emily, barely able to contain my excitement. She confirmed it. "Jack, that means their gate's an unauthorized structure on your property. You can control it. You could even block it if you wanted." And that's when it hit me. If Charles wanted to turn my road into a toll gate, then I'd turn it into a business. I called my buddy, Ray, a contractor with a grudge against HOAs after one fined him for painting his mailbox too glossy. I told him my plan. He laughed so hard he nearly dropped the phone. "Hell yes," he said. "Let's build it this weekend before they even notice." We spent 48 hours in a blur of wood, steel, and late-night energy drinks. I built the electronics myself: solar panels, motion sensors, payment terminal, automatic barrier. By Sunday morning, McCarthy Toll Booth stood proudly beside their expensive gate, complete with a sign: "Private road, $20 per crossing or $100 monthly pass." The first car that stopped was a minivan. The driver rolled down the window, confusion all over her face. "Is this a joke?" she asked. I smiled. "No, ma'am. The HOA charges me for access. I'm just returning the favor for the part of the road that's on my property." She sighed, handed me a 20, and drove through. By lunchtime, a line of SUVs snaked down the street. Some drivers cursed. Others laughed. One even gave me a thumbs up. Every transaction came with a printed receipt and a clear conscience. That afternoon, Patricia, Charles's sidekick, pulled up in her Lexus, face red as a stop sign. "You can't do this!" she screamed. "I'm calling Charles right now." I leaned against the booth, calm as ever. "Call whoever you want. Just make sure you pay the toll first." 30 minutes later, Charles himself showed up, furious. "You've lost your damn mind, McCarthy!" he shouted. "You're blocking a public road!" "Not a public road," I replied, waving the survey. "Your own fence made sure of that." He called the sheriff. Officer Daniels arrived, calm and polite. He reviewed my papers, walked the property line, and finally turned to Charles. "Sir, looks like this gate's partially on Mr. McCarthy's land. It's a civil matter, not criminal. I'd advise you to sort it out in court." Charles's jaw clenched so tight I thought he'd crack a tooth. He left without another word. I could practically hear him grinding his molars as he drove off. Over the next week, I made thousands of dollars. HOA residents started complaining, not to me, but to him. "Why are we paying 2 tolls just to get home?" they demanded. The HOA board started to fracture, whispering behind closed doors. Meanwhile, I installed more solar panels, more cameras, and a new sign that read, "All payments non-refundable. Blame your HOA." Then came the night of the sabotage. Around 2 a.m., motion alerts pinged my phone. 3 figures appeared on camera, one of them unmistakably Charles, spray painting my cameras, ripping out wires, trying to pry open the payment box. I just sat there in the dark, watching, recording every second as my backup cameras caught everything. By dawn, I'd already emailed the footage to my lawyer, the sheriff, and a local journalist who'd been following the story. At noon, I rebuilt the booth stronger than before, this time with steel reinforcements and a new custom sign. Special rate for Charles Benton, $1,000 per crossing. When he drove up that afternoon, his face turned crimson. "You're done, McCarthy," he spat. "You'll regret this." I just smiled, already profiting, thanks. 2 days later, the video hit the internet. HOA president caught vandalizing private property. It exploded. Local news picked it up. Then state news. The HOA's own members demanded answers. At the next emergency meeting, residents shouted at Charles, calling for his resignation. Patricia sat beside him, pale as chalk, pretending to take notes. But I wasn't finished. My lawyer uncovered proof that Charles had falsified the building permit for the fence. He'd submitted fake coordinates and hid the easement entirely. Even worse, he was pocketing kickbacks from a developer planning to build luxury homes next to my ranch once I was forced to sell. So I sent him a formal peace offer, a meeting at my lawyer's office. He showed up 15 minutes late, smug as ever, wearing a $2,000 suit. He brought his attorney, too, acting like they were walking into a victory lap. I kept my tone calm. "Charles, I'll take down my booth and drop the charges if you remove your gate, restore my easement, and sign a public apology." He leaned back, smirking. "You don't seem to understand your position. Jack, we can drag this out for years. You'll go broke before I lose a dime." He didn't know we were recording, legally, with notice posted on the wall. And that line would soon cost him everything. The next morning, I released everything. The vandalism footage, the falsified permits, and the full audio of Charles admitting he'd rigged the system for personal profit. The story spread like wildfire. News vans parked outside the HOA office. Neighbors gathered in the street, shouting for his resignation. Within a week, he was gone, fired, disgraced, facing criminal charges for property damage and fraud. His developer partner backed out of the project, and the HOA board voted to remove the gate entirely. They even paid for the repairs to my booth and legal fees, just to end the nightmare. When the crew came to tear down the metal fence, I stood a few feet away, arms crossed. Charles drove by one last time, head low, pretending not to see me, for the first time in months. The road to my home was clear again, quiet, wide open, like it used to be. I didn't cheer. I didn't gloat. I just stood there, breathing in the silence, knowing that justice had spoken in its own way. And if I learned one thing through it all, it's this: never let anyone fence you in, especially when you know exactly where your property line ends and your dignity begins.